Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. This, is another below the fold issue. It's odd to say that about a constitutional right, but this is an important part of thinking about your decision on November 5th. Free speech, sort of intrinsic to a free society is the ability to think and speak freely. And we understand what the Harris-Walz tickets view is on it. They've made it very clear. First Field Marshal Tim.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Yeah, but who determines what hate speech is?
There's no protection. There's no First Amendment protection around misinformation. Yeah, there is. It's called the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Kamala had the same position. Remember, she was, of course, seizing the zeitgeist of her party at the time because she is a cipher for the new Bolsheviks, the same way company man Joe Biden was, leading the charge to get Trump bounced off Twitter and hold these social media companies accountable, meaning make sure that they agree with our censorship decisions and do our bidding for us.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation, and that has to stop.
You would think that a couple of journalists from a corporate media outfit would want to talk about First Amendment protections because it necessarily implicates the press, but there's the big reveal. When the D.C. press corps is folded into the state, they're not so much concerned about anybody else's First Amendment rights, are they? Yeah. So the oversight and the regulation, well, do tell. That may have been an interesting discussion on Tuesday night. Do tell. You said oversight and regulation. So what does that look like? You've obviously given it a lot of thought. You're very concerned about it. Our very democracy hangs in the balance. That's what both you and your running mate have said. So provide some details.
Another missed moment. Probably the only debate they're going to have.
Well, maybe J.D. Vance will take it up on October 1st because it is both of them who have taken that position, both Harris and Walz. For more on the topic, Daniel Klein joins us, professor of economics at George Mason University and author of Misinformation. There's that word again. Misinformation is a word we use to shut you up. Professor Klein, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you. I think your opening was great and right on the money.
Well, yeah, and you would think that this would be a little bit more of concern given all that we know about from the Twitter files reporting and of various other instances of the skullduggerous censorship state that was in full operation in 2020, was in full operation through the COVID pandemic, remains in full operation, it seems, particularly after Amy Coney Barrett punted on Murthy.
Yes, they are intent on censorship, a whole of society approach. And to disguise the nature of the censorship, which is just shutting up people who disagree with them or oppose them politically, they disguise it with certain stratagems. They use words, they misuse words like misinformation and also like hate. And what they do with hate. And what they're doing is they're setting up their own bureaucrats, their own sort of gallery of judges who are going to say, yes, 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 that's hate, or yes, 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 that's mis or disinformation, to then say, see, this guy's actually guilty of something serious.
Right.
And it's just a big philosophical confusion. And in the misinformation piece you mentioned, I try to dissect how to think about that. And I also have been writing about hate speech laws and hate crime laws to kind of unpack what's going on here and how they're basically manipulating us and propagandizing us in order to put across their censorship. Censorship and propaganda go hand in hand naturally, because without censorship, the big lies of propaganda get ripped to shreds. So they need the censorship to sustain the propaganda.
Well, and here's something too that I mean, it's just generally concerning because this is a movement that is afoot. This censorship movement that is afoot in the West, generally speaking. In point of fact, just this week, the Australian government introduced new hate crime legislation that would impose criminal penalties, including jail, for offenders if they target a person's race, gender, ethnic origin, religion, or sexual orientation. And as Amy sort of intimated in the opening, you know, when you talk about targeting, what is the definition of targeting a person's, particular identity characteristics? What constitutes hate, such that you run afoul of the law and you are subject to criminal penalties? And this is where it gets really gooey, and it feels like it necessarily will have to be arbitrarily and capriciously enforced.
I agree. It's completely against the modern world. It's completely against the great civilization we've built in the last 400 or 500 years, say, especially since the printing press and the wars of religion. What we learned, broadly speaking, in the West is that we're going to come to different opinions, exactly as James Madison said in the Federalist Papers. People, as long as they are imperfect, and we are all very imperfect, and as long as they are free to express their opinions, are going to come to very different opinions, meaning very different sentiments about what is love-worthy and what is hate-worthy. And the only way to make this work in a peaceful way is like to have freedom and freedom of speech. And that's what, James Madison and the founding and the Constitution and the First Amendment is all about. And these people basically want to undo the modern liberal, if you will, liberal in the original old sense of the term, liberal world. They are anti-liberal. And it's just horrible. I mean, basically, they want to return us to a kind of age of orthodoxy where to speak, heterodoxy or unorthodoxy is a kind of treason, a kind of crime against the state. It's just insane. I mean, they're like totalitarian in their nature, honestly.
Well, and you heard this from the Attorney General, no less, yesterday. And another word that's worthy of dissection, and because of its ubiquity when it comes to the newspeak used to cover their intentions, Merrick Garland, to criticize public officials, prosecutors at the Department of Justice, is to engage in something that is dangerous. That is dangerous, right? And then there's this conflation that goes on, and where he just runs a list of threats of violence, bullying, and it gets, watered down and watered down. But he leads with threats of violence, and then he throws in a bunch of other things in that same category because it's all dangerous.
Weaponization is a key part of all this, and the principle that the process is the punishment. They know that what they're saying is nonsense and really can't make law or make any sensible kind of law in the courts and in procedure. But the process is the punishment. They can use this. They have, again, their gallery of stooges in the courts and in the bureaucracies to kind of support them and come down and persecute people. And that's effective, even if you don't ultimately go to jail for speaking against some public official or expressing some opinion that they don't like. Even if they don't ultimately land you in jail, they can hurt you, really. And so the process is the punishment.
Yeah. The Gallery of Stooges, ironically, was the name of my garage band. It was an Iggy and the Stooges tribute band.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, do we have time for one more question?
Please.
So when you, if, and I say if with a bated breath, Harris and Tim Walz get into the Oval Office, what do you see happening on social media?
They're going to push for censorship. They're going to, I think it'll be very, very bad. I mean, it'll be crazy, and I don't know what will happen, but I think they're reading them 100% correctly.
Maybe, I don't know, some sort of concocted antitrust action against Elon Musk, for example?
Yeah. I mean, they would love to do what Brazil did and bounce. They would love to just shut up all the dissent and persecute people who disagree with them. They're literally pre-modern in their mentality.
Yeah.
But they don't want people not to love them or to praise them.
Well, but you're right. They only accept compliments, right? We don't have a complaint department because we only accept compliments. But I'll tell you, the nice thing, if you shut up all the dissent, then we have unity. We have real unity then. This is what they sell.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Of course.
The unanimity of the graveyard as why am I blanking? The justice.
Yeah, all of these fantasies of recreating the small band, which of course is what we came from evolutionarily, they're all demented, and they just don't face the reality of the modern world. And that's kind of what leftism is all about.
Justice Robert Jackson, by the way, unanimity of the graveyard. I had a little mental blip there.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I'm glad you're back, Dan.
Thank you. Daniel Klein, professor of economics, George Mason University, author of Misinformation is a Word We Use to Shut You Up. Professor Klein, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Have you noticed all the ads for gold and silver? By now you know if precious metals are right for you. Quite frankly, most major dealers have roughly the same pricing models. Fox Valley Coins offers everything the other large national dealers offer, only with a local, personal touch. Fox Valley Coins will treat you like family. And if you want to stay anonymous, under most